It is an extreme pleasure to introduce you to Maja Hoffmann and Vassilis Oikonomopoulos, who is the director of the LUMA Arles. I have a few memories, how these flash memories, how it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, when this whole area you see here got purchased, the day it was purchased, there was a very long table with all family and friends, and it was a wasteland. Really, it was a wasteland. And when we, Maja and you, were standing outside, it was so hot you couldn't even breathe, actually, and it was a huge concrete surface. And Maja then said, you know, I want to bring the water. I want to bring the nature. I want to bring it here. And I said, wow, how do you do that? And she said, there's a channel over there. We will bring the water and we will bring the green. Now, a couple of years later, I mean, this is how it is, the situation now. But it was not easy to achieve because the city was against and it needed a lot of guts and passion and vision and convincing a lot of discussions to come to this state it is now. It's the most amazing, not only museum, but artisan residency. It's a kaleidoscope in Europe. It's unique, maybe worldwide.
We're going to have many layers. It's very layered, this session. And this is layer one of this amazing afternoon session with Maja. And I think it would be amazing if we could begin, Maja, with the beginnings, because you mentioned always that the whole project of LUMA and LUMA Arles grew so organically. And so maybe we could begin with that, no?
Yeah, thank you, Hans. Thank you, Christina. Yeah, I mean, Hans Ulrich is mentioning layers. I would mention in the presentation today, it will more be like touches of, could be a paint stroke or it could be anything. And these touches we will touch upon several times during the presentation. And I hope, and I'm trying because it's an experiment here, that I will give you an overall image of what is meant, because it's all about the correlation between things, about the overlaps of different programs, and it's not. It can semble huge, but it is, like Hans said, it all happened over time. So it happened over time, and the different geographies and the different dates and times just give an image that is very plastic, that can be more than three-dimensional. So I hope that you will follow this through the images that we will show. First, and then in the end, I would really like, if you can hold for so long, that you come with questions about if you feel that this can have an impact today, or if you think we should go and look a little in different direction or radically in different directions. I have to add too that the world is becoming so radical that this this approach in little touches or layers may be not continued for a long time. I will continue, but I'm not sure how this will work. So, yes, if I may, Hans, I should also introduce Vassilis, who is the director of program and exhibitions in Arles, and also at the LUMA Vespau. And he's been doing it for a few years now. And then we will have also Stephanie Hessler, with whom I work at the Swiss Institute, and whom I invited to be the director, the annual curator of Elevation. And on Elevation, which is the project in the Swiss Alps, we will also touch upon several times. Maybe we can look at some images. So it all began with, that was fast, but okay. Yeah. Huh? So it all started, as Christina was saying, on a barren thing in Arles, but I would like to speak about the LUMA Foundation. And the LUMA Foundation has its hub in Arles. Has its hub in Zurich, sorry, the headquarter, and at the at the LUMA Westbau with a lot of relationship with the Kunsthalle Zurich. I saw a few of you this morning, and this was really important because it's where it all started. Did we have a slide on the LUMA? Yeah. We have, yeah. I don't understand the order, but it's okay. And then the LUMA Foundation, yeah, so the hub is in Switzerland, and we will pass very fast on this, and we will come back to the elevation part because Stephanie, who is here, will join us in a few minutes on stage. So we started at trying to develop an idea where we could have the people come to our place instead of us having to travel the world all the time. So we started with think tanks, and you saw the people before, which are two of them are staying. It's Hans Ulrich and Tom Eccles, whereas we continue to speak with the initial group, with the artists Philippe Arnaud, with Liam Gillick, and with Beatrix Ruff, with whom we also conceived a lot the concept of the Kunsthalle in Zurich, the way it stands now, and the Westbau. Then we have some new advisors who are like senior advisors. For instance, we work with the MIT and with Hashim Sarkis, which is the director of the Media Lab and the School of Design and Architecture and Design, and Bas Metz, who came to E.A.T a few years ago and who designed the park. We also have the professor Jan Beulen, who is in charge of the LUMA Atelier, which is the design atelier. I think now we can go fast. I just wanted to make sure that I introduce you. We have an executive team that works day and night since the opening, mostly, of course, before, but we became closer during COVID, and we are trying to work on the artistic program at the same time than the program, the Atelier LUMA and all the rest. Hans, did you want to speak about other things? We can go further.
I think this
yeah,
covers it. Brilliant.
Yeah. We will show a few images that do not always need comment. This is the LUMA Westbau. I'm sorry, I cannot click myself. So this is the LUMA Westbau, of which I spoke before, and the first allusion to the, please, Vassilis, yeah, to the elevation, which is happening in the Saarland, in Gstaad, and this is a past iteration. I think we can go further. So first, the tower. There is a collaboration with Frank Gehry that he did one of the main buildings, and this building was supposed to attract attention because we were working in a wasteland, like we said. We are working in a town that is small, that has a historic past which is ginormous, but which was really sleeping, and more than sleeping, a little under the what would be really economically viable. Now, this is why we did this high tower. We did the high tower in order to see the sea, because it's important for us to see that the territory is huge there. It's the biggest commune in France, and it was important to be implanted in the territory. Of course, you see it from far, but the fact is that when you are on top, you see the sea, and you see the Camargue, you see the Alpi, and you see all the things that make this region different. I think you just need to go through because otherwise it will not work. So, yeah. Here, the collaboration with Frank Gehry worked well. When we opened during COVID in 2020, we had our commissions that are part of the building itself. So it's part of the architecture. They are structural. And we worked with Frank Gehry in the tower. I don't know if you saw, there's a few works that are really incredible. And then we also worked on the historic building that we refurbished. They were from the former railway, from the SNCF. We did this with Annabelle Seldorf, who is very well known also in Switzerland. She's has been working on the galleries of House of E.A.T, and many other people. For the collectors who are here, they will recognize her work. And here, is this the Atelier LUMA? Because I don't have my glasses. Yeah, okay. So our last thing happened, is a program that happened, it's not our last, but a program that happened much later than the construction of the tower. We started it in 2017, I think, and it has developed ever since. This building is a little bit the opposite, seen from the architecture, than the building that was conceived with Frank before 2008. If you think about it, it makes sense. This was still a time where architecture was looked at differently, but we have jumped to the next forward-thinking thing, which was to build with alternative materials that were issued from our research at the Atelier LUMA. So Atelier LUMA's idea started in 2017 by mapping the region and by showing. I think we come back later on the Atelier LUMA with a little more detail. So the idea is to map the region, to stay local, to try and develop new materials, really scientifically researched, and through design, it is important to show that there are other ways of doing architecture. This atelier has been built by the researchers themselves. So they had the opportunity to use Frank's Tower too as a showroom, so to say, for their materials. And in the middle of COVID, when we opened, it was really important to see that. And while we opened to the public, we were finishing the Atelier LUMA. So I'm saying this like this, sorry, I speak a lot here, but it's because I'm saying it because it's important to know that we are in progress or in work, under progress, under work, and there's always something happening there at the same time. And one of the biggest success was the Bas Metz, whom you saw here, park that showed that it's possible to lower the temperature, and that it's becoming an example for the series he is doing with the GSD Harvard School of Architecture. And LUMA is like helping a whole series of over a few years to go in the hottest capital cities in the Mediterranean mostly, because we are very interested and plugged into the Mediterranean. Maybe we move, and he just drove with his students. This is the Mediterranean. If you don't recognize it, it's because it's upside down. We put the south up and the north down. Yeah. So these are all places where Atelier LUMA is active. These are our partners. So this presentation is just a work in progress. That's why it's still not very ordered. And we now are hinting fast on the program of exhibitions that I really invite you all to come and visit at some point. This is our third year of programmation. We historically programmed a lot, but I don't know, because Vassilis prepared another presentation where he goes more into detail of the artistic work. So I will just want to say that we produce big exhibitions, and we work with these artists and the artists in residence too. And here's Theasta, who is here today too. And Christina, yeah, she said that you were here and that you were coming because, yeah, Theasta will speak later. We worked with Judy Chicago last year, and we will come back on all of this. Our program is based a lot on residencies. Yeah.
Yeah, before we go, does it work? I'm not sure. Yeah. Before we go into the exhibitions, Maja, I thought it would be interesting because, as you said, Vassilis prepared a presentation of the shows, but I think it would be interesting to hear a little bit more from you about your vision, because from the very beginning, in these very first meetings, many years ago, you had really a vision of a place of exchange, which wouldn't just be an art institution. It would be an exchange between many different disciplines, a project in a bioregion, in a very specific place in Arles. Ecology was there from the very, very beginning. Human rights. You wanted this to be more than an arts institution. So I think it would be great to hear a little bit more about that, because you had that from the very beginning. I remember that was day one. You were very clear. It had to be. Yeah, it had to be that.
It was maybe clearer on day one. Yes, yes, it's beyond the architecture. It has a social impact, and I think that the fact that we speak and produce exhibitions, that we have artists that stay in residence for a longer time, that we touch upon the living arts, and that we have also the Atelier LUMA that is researching these landscapes and plugs into a bigger mission that is global warming now, together with the MIT, for instance, or also with an institute that is called Tour du Vala, that is studying wetlands. Is key for LUMA, and this is also explaining why from Switzerland I went to the south of France, because this region is just a region that could provide all this for the artists, for the research on the wetlands, and when I say for the artists, to host the residencies, and also because it's for climatic change really a place that is important. But this will plug in later into also the mountains, why I would like to have these biennials in the mountains, the Elevation 1049 project that we will discuss in the second part of this presentation. And this one is also coming from the same place than what LUMA was coming, and this is why we founded it years ago. But we will speak later about this. What I mean is that it is standing for attracting attention on problems that have social impact, and that have also an impact on the world, and what is the world going to become, and puts the discussion in the middle. And we also touch upon culinary art, because I see we have the thing now. So we will host residencies. We already do, but we will host more of this, and the whole discussion about how do these different disciplines really meet, and they can meet and produce a discourse that is for a mission, and this mission is actually to be living today in the planet where it's today. There is this radical change coming from the West that we need to digest first, and to analyze and see how we will follow on this. But I have the feeling that we are a place of creation and a place of resistance at the same time, right now, at the moment where we are now. So we have also an organic restaurant.
But if I may, this is one of the first projects that started before even LUMA was conceived as an institution in the south of France. And at the time, it was a restaurant that pioneered having an organic garden attached to it. And this notion of the garden and the production happening at the same time as the place where it's being displayed and is being presented or consumed, in this case of food, it's very important, because it creates a network which is very local, but also completely, in terms of the artistic programmation, completely looking to the outside, and completely making possible the most ambitious projects that could take place at the moment with the most interesting artists. And also, like, it's the same as a kind of creating a garden that you need to nourish and you need to look after in order to have a produce that is essential. Yeah.
No, it's true. Every project we have in Arles could stand by himself, actually. But it's important to see how it connects with the others, and that's how it becomes a holistic approach.
So it began before it began, and it began before it began also, in the sense of that I remember that you also, Maja said in the beginning of the conversations, that you didn't want to wait for the buildings to be ready. That was also a great idea, because you said, we have to do stuff in the process. It has begun, and even years before Annabelle Seldorf's and Gary's structures were ready, things started to pop up. The kind of prefiguration was also a period of experimentation in a way. That was another, I think, important point for you, no?
Yeah, very important. I agree. We were active while we were constructing, and this reminded me of I was reminded of this in the talk this morning, where I see that Regula has a very strong idea about what she wants, and working with an architect who knows the region is of course much easier. Not easier, it's very difficult, but it's more. It makes so much more sense to have two people who already know the strong environment to try to sort out what will be the solution. So I was very engaged in this. We just had the factor time on our side, and it's true that the LUMA Foundation itself and the idea exists. The LUMA Foundation exists since 2004. And already in 2006, we were discussing with Beatrix, with Hans Ulrich first, and then including the others. And it's been a long-term engagement, and it still continues with the executive team now.
But for example, like in 2012, an exhibition that took place in the arena, the Roman arena of Arles, To the Moon via the Beats,
yeah.
which included a number of artists, but also a number of thinkers that kind of like produced a long, a 3-day, 4-day event that the audience could get in and out of and experience something, which eventually lent information to what happened last year at the exhibition of the Bayeler, the summer show, that was a continuation of this moment, and now somehow in a circular manner also comes back to Arles in our program for next summer. So this interesting movements between times and temporal extension somehow is something that without knowing it, you were creating the future, but also you kind of like move back and forth in it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and we documented everything. So this exhibition was in 2012, before we were starting to build, and we have everything. So maybe it will pop up again at some point. It was a fascinating concept. Yeah, if you want, we can speak about it. But I think our time is very limited now.
We can continue.
No? Yeah?
Yeah, it was basically a lunar landscape transformed. It was very closely related to the artists. I think what is also really unique is that you involved artists from the beginning in the think tank with Philippe Pareno and Liam Gillick, and that the artists really were there to think the institution. And they came up with this idea that the sand artists would create initially a lunar landscape. It was kind of incredible to also get the arena, because it's obviously the most public space in a way. In art, it's also where every tourist goes. There was a crossing of audiences. And then the sand became a kind of a display feature, because every artist could plug something into the sand. And it was a kind of a time-based experiment, like a group show, kind of and that's where it really relates then to the Bayer Summer Show, a play also on format, no? Yeah. A different format. And I remember sort of the day after the opening, you told us that next should be something with the maquettes of Gary, and that created a whole other experiment.
Yeah, no? Yeah. So we were able to bring the maquette, the models of Gary, and some of them were very big, and they were choreographed by an artist called what? Tino. Yeah, Tino Segal, whom I say hi to if he watches. No, Tino did the choreography, and actually he also worked years later on this Bayer show together with Philippe Pareno and Hans Ulrich and others. So this was an interesting way to enter, and I think, quite frankly, my belief is that these shows will stay historical, actually, like historical moments without being, like key moments in the history of contemporary art. So archive, right?
But maybe something which is interesting in relation to this is the impact of something that is not yet known the moment it's being created, particularly because the architecture of Gary has been influenced so much by the Roman architecture. The glass atrium, which defines the entrance points to the Gary's Tower in Arles, is referencing the arena of Arles. It's the same dimensions as the interior circle of the arena. So in a way, the impact of something has a direct visibility, or it becomes a moment of visibility in the work of someone else in the same context. And I think this is the important thing when trying to create visionary projects, that you never know what's going to happen after. You never know what the outcome will be somewhere else, and where something will appear from a seed that has been planted in another place.
Yeah. And also that the experiment kind of, I mean, with the maquettes, and when they moved, and Tino came up with the choreography, and then Liam came up with light. There was a lighting kind of experiment going on. And then Pierre Boulez, who was almost 90, I think at the time we went to see him in Baden-Baden, developed a soundtrack. It's kind of one of his last pieces. And then I think David Lynch took the photo. It was a whole interdisciplinary experiment. It was kind of very, very much bringing fields together. And
so this helped us also to work together. It was really interesting and stays exciting. Now we also continue to work into these programs. This is if we follow the images, which we don't have to because it's a work in progress. Is coming back to the Atelier LUMA and the way the method is proceeding. This is picking up a lot right now in our regions, and we have partners coming to us. I mean, in the beginning, we thought we could develop products, and these products we would then be able to sell them. But if you need to patent them, it's a very difficult process. And in reality, we decided that we would be an open-ended, open source for the rest of all the other designers. But what we can sell, and this time it's mine. Yeah, this year. Yeah.
Everything falls down.
Gravity.
It's been a marathon weekend. Yeah, I know. And so we don't really sell the products. Maybe in the future, yeah, if we know how to scale them up, because we were a research institute. But what we can do is speak about our methods and teach to others. And more we had students or residents who want to come and study this. And with the help of the MIT lab, I mean, they have a lot of different names, but here it is the one, the design X. They know how to accelerate the research and how to make it connected with other people who do similar things in the world. So we are launching these connections and this project in March. So that's good. And we are announcing our project for our artistic project for next year in February, mid of February. So we are all in the doing right now. Atelier LUMA is something that is important. It's been told to me from the scientific world. It's been taught to me from the business world. It's been told to me from the entrepreneurial world. We will see how far we can bring it. It is really a program that can bring partnerships, and I very much hope that it is that. And at the same time, all the resident artists who come also love to go and use the facilities, and be it, as I said, landscape, objects, design. They bring solution to big design solutions, and it plugs us into the tech too. So I think we are at the moment where everything is possible in this regard. What do you think, Hans?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting in many of the conversations which happened yesterday and this morning, because Atelier LUMA is so much also about production of reality. No, it's in a way about the production of reality, about an impact, because of course. It's a model which is developed in Arles, in the bioregion, which more can be exported, but not exported in a kind of a homogenized way, but exported as a kind of a skill set, which allows people to kind of locally develop similar things in their own bioregion. So I think it has a massive potential to really, change the world.
Absolutely, and I think, again, to go back into the subject of the form and impact, the Atelier LUMA is producing materials either from waste or of other industries or from natural resources which are normally being thrown away or are neglected by their major kind of like users, and taking all this material, making something new out of this, which can be used for construction particularly or for design, provides a unique example of how things can be done with local resources. But the question is also for us, if Atelier LUMA provides a kind of a moral compass, because it's not something that can be or needs to be exported as a material, because the moment you export something from a local region, you automatically potentially have to consider whether you exhaust the primary resource. So in reality, we export the methodology and we try to apply the methodology in different parts of the world where different materials but with a similar forms or with a similar processes could be generated. And I think this is also a shift in mentality which can be producing a new way of thinking what the business model can be for the production of materials and construction and design.
Yeah, that's a super summarization of what we hope will become even more amplified. I think we should look into the program. I'm like a little worried with timing because we want to leave the space then for elevation. We want to leave the space for theaster. Should we look? Yeah, let's switch. Are these images interesting for you right now? Because we couldn't sample just a few right now this morning.
What you see here is some of the salt experiments that we do.
The salt, yeah, we work with
have cladded a large part of the interior side of the tower with salt that has been produced in the Camargue. It was the salt plains are pretty known, but also it's a resource which produces a lot of. It's an industry which has lost its value somehow. To be able to invent new form has the potential of like rethinking how industries could be regenerated. From the cultural perspective, and actually it's a wonderful material to have as in the interior spaces, and it attracts so much attention about the possibilities that can happen when we think about materials not in the commonplace, but in the way that they can be thought of in the future.
And salt is also purifying, so to say. So there is a lot of applications for this material and the forms. So we continue to research. This is our program with Harvard, which I think is going really to develop. And they really the students are looking at ways of lowering the temperatures, which is quite hands-on and quite works. The MIT, I already spoke about it. It's for global warming. It's an initiative for global warming. So we were invited to Davos with this, and so it's also interesting in the business world with all these programs, and the residents are quite excited. Shall we speak about the program?
Yeah, maybe a last point before we go to the program, which is that also it's kind of, in a way, I think fascinating that it means that a lot of these things go beyond the idea of event culture. No, it goes beyond, because obviously there's the calendar of exhibitions, there's the calendar of events, and that, as Roman Kaczarnik, the wonderful philosopher, said, is very much short-termism. Exhibitions last a few months, and I think the idea that at the core of LUMA is longue durée. It's a long duration endeavor, like Atelier LUMA develops over many years, but also the way how artists, we're going to hear later from Theaster Gates. Theaster didn't do just an exhibition. You invited him to do something very long durational, something much deeper. So it's kind of maybe it's about deep time somehow. And
it's interesting because we spoke about space and we spoke about recreating nature in a kind of cultural context, but the ability that the capacity, which I think is the most important, is that we extend the notion of time, and we don't really think about what time means. We take time for granted, but time can have multiple entry points or it can have multiple forms as well. And it's something really felt in the way that things are happening in Arles, that we have the opportunity of actually spending a lot of time with artists who are there. And by using this time, we create unique projects that could not happen elsewhere, just because time in different places has also different meaning and it works in different ways. So it's interesting to kind of be able to take multiple time frames into consideration, and very often we work with the temporal framework of nature, because that's also the context in which we are very much exposed. But sometimes we're looking at temporal frameworks of the past. We look at the Roman time and what the Roman layering of ideas can provide us in the way of creating a culture products today, like this layering or this kind of like archipelago of connectivity, which has been very strongly influencing the project from the beginning.
Okay, let's look at the program.
And while all this is happening, we also have but we look at yours. We also have we host conferences, and this is quite important. We work on partnerships. We hosted the annual meeting of the Human Rights Watch, and and others. And at the living soil. We work with the E.A.T. So all of this, if you want, it started only 3 years ago that we opened. It's really picking up. And it is my hope that the partnerships will bring the project on this broader scale where we start to be now. Also in publishing, we need to move forward. So I know you're rushing through this because you have another more detailed things to come. So we hosted events too. This is one that we hosted ourselves, though. This is not with partnerships. It was the anniversary, and one of our trusted co-worker with being, we have a relationship with Pice Corriga and the Van Gogh Museum in Arles that really got born at the same time. Then we started LUMA. We hosted their 10th anniversary last summer. So we made a joint venture for Arles of what LUMA can do in the new time with all the technology, the drones, and this is the Starry Night scene reaction on Starry Night. And at the same time, we had an incredible exhibition at the Van Gogh Museum that probably some of you have seen it through Pice and Jean de Loisier. And this one we didn't document in this work in progress presentation, but there are many images of it. Okay.
So maybe
we will mark a pause later, but now I think it would be good for time reasons to speak about the artistic program.
Yeah, I mean, Maja, maybe before we go into the detail, you can say just a few words, because archives have been there from the very beginning. The idea that you wanted to have as another dimension of LUMA Arles, not only exhibitions, it's again connected to longue durée. You know, it's a long duration thing, it's an archive. And it's something which Felix González Torres always emphasized. He said, you know, usually institutions get involved with archives, you know, posthumously, but you wanted it to be living archive because you wanted to work with the people whose archive it is, you know, as a work in progress. There's the Parquet archive, Annie Leibowitz, we have the discussions about my archive from the very beginning. Maybe it's
like
interesting to hear about these different archives, no?
Yeah. So now, we will in a minute. So your turn, no?
But then, okay.
Oh yeah,
but it was about maybe we can speak about it. I mean, the image is referential, so it's like,
okay.
But I think for...
No, so let's speak, I was following this. So, yes, we have this this conversation with Hans Ulrich. We have all his interview. Hans Ulrich is interviewing everybody he meets, every artist he meets, or every personality, and then he keeps it like it's not a journal, I would say. It's really a true documentation of the time. And then he also has an incredible collection of books, and he also has all the correspondence which goes with it. And I'm not going to make a exhaustive description of all the similar things we have, for instance, parquet, piche, cahier d'art, and it's not a collection, it's just a way of trying to describe the epoch, our thing. And I will let you speak about it because I'm a little mixed up. Sure. I thought we would speak first about the exhibitions and then about the archive.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to give a very brief overview of the exhibitions that we staged and we hosted last year in 2024. Normally we do about 12 to 15 exhibitions and performances in Arles every year. And the exhibition making process is coming out of a long series of conversations that we begin with Hans-Ulrich, with Maja, with Tom Eccles, and with the curators that work with us in Arles, to try to think what are the areas that are most interesting at a specific moment, but also to try to present artists who come from different generations, but to work also across different media, and very often without also having a kind of like a specific thematic that is overarching in mind. Many things seem to become interconnected. In a way, we started discussing about the work of Drift, but also the work of Diana Theater that I will show you later on, and the work of Gustav Metzger last year, which eventually became exhibitions. And very quickly we realized that there is a common thread of nature and ecosystems, thinking about ecology, that we never considered when we were looking at their work individually. So inevitably, when we have an incredibly large context, which is the approximately 25,000 square meters of exhibition spaces in Arles, when we kind of like work with all these artists, sometimes the artists are also sharing space and time together. They come into conversation with each other while we're making the exhibitions. There is a lot of elements that we have never considered before that become visible to us. And for us, this is some of the kind of like magical moments that we see as the possibilities of creating something in places where it's the least expected, or finding something in the conversation where it's the least expected. One of these is the example of Drift, that we connected not with, obviously it has some elements of connection with other exhibitions we had in LUMA, but also it was connected to the exhibition at the Fondation Vincent van Gogh in Arles that was focusing on the Van Gogh's Starry Night and the idea of Starry Night and how Van Gogh was interested in scientific and astronomical and knowledge of his period when he was painting his paintings. And we try to see how we can recreate some of these experiences through technologies that are more relevant to today's world, to today's practitioners. And Drift, who is a studio working with technology extensively, working with natural phenomena as the basis of their thinking, was kind of like the perfect artist, the perfect candidates to make a connection to what are the phenomena which are underlying the production of art that references ecology or nature, and how do these phenomena become manifest in the fine artistic project. This is what you see here is a highly interactive projection, which takes as the starting point the movement of birds in the sky, and they are following the movement of people within the exhibition space. The swarm kind of like moves around, trying to avoid or trying to go closer to the people which are in the same space. And this exhibition was accompanied by a performance in one evening where we recreated the Starry Night of Van Gogh in Arles using drones. Something that was very, very unique, and something which transported the experience of the very, very incredible night sky of Arles back into the moment when Van Gogh was like looking at this exact same sky. We also had the opportunity of to work with Diana Theater, who's one of the pioneer artists of video installations based in Los Angeles, and we installed a work called Practical Effects, in which a kind of like a robot was tending an empty garden, a garden that is devoid of human life. So in a way, kind of like looking at an ecology from the perspective of no human activity. So it's like what happens to the world that we're creating when there is possibly at some point humans will become extinct. And the idea of extinction then connected with two of the other artists in a very, very intimate way. Ricky Tiravanisa was with whom we did an exhibition as well, but also Gustav Metzger too. Artists who have really engaged extensively with ideas about extinction, about interspecies relationships, and about the current moment of the world as climate change transformations will inevitably impact the form of life as we know it, and the form of living as we know it, and society, of course, as we know it. We had also the great opportunity to work with the incredible Judy Chicago, who made us think of the institution in a completely different way of what we can do and what we cannot do. We pushed it so far, and with actually like the everyday conversations that we had with Maja and Judy, not only we made an exhibition possible, but we made possible in a very short period of time a smoke sculpture. Judy Chicago, from the late 60s, beginning of 70s, she was creating these smoke sculptures in the desert at the time, in the US, to try to create awareness about ecological subjects. And for her, the smoke sculptures are an essential part of her practice, something that takes often years to develop, one sculpture. In the case of our exhibition in Arles, we made a sculpture in the period of a few months, and it was something that she called an homage to Arles, and it was a sculpture that took as a reference the color palette of Van Gogh and the idea of the water lilies of Monet, and created this kind of like mixture of both, and it was presented over an evening in the sky of Arles, extremely intense and extremely beautiful at the same time. Yeah. Erika Verzuti, a younger artist with whom we created again an exhibition out of a residency program. She was one of the artists that stayed with us for a period of time, for more than 6 months, developed a series of sculptures that we then presented in an exhibition. But also William Kentridge, with whom we produced not only an exhibition, but also an opera, a new opera. And this is, again, something that we favor. We favor new forms of what an artist can do. In this case, with William Kentridge, when we started working on an exhibition together, he presented to us an opera project that was still in the making. The opera project had a very political theme, as often is his work. And for us, when we actually saw him in Johannesburg, the project that he wanted to make, that he was still developing, had to do with a very specific moment in time, which is not very different to the moment of time in which we are now. He wanted to make an opera that would be staged inside a boat that was existing in a way, and a boat that was taking the voyage in the 40s from Marseille to Martinique. It was a boat that was carrying the intellectuals and political figures that were escaping Nazism in Europe, that were escaping the kind of evolution of the Third Reich and the Vichy government in France. And on their way to the US, they were stopping by Martinique because it was a French territory. So he wanted to create this journey by adding also imaginary characters onto this voyage, people who were living across history, to really make the point of the dangers of the extreme right, of the dangers of fascism. And as a kind of like coincidence, or not really ever coincidence, we premiered the opera, which was called The Great Yes, The Great No, then the very same night of the elections in France in the summer. The elections that were so close to shifting one of the kind of like biggest democracies in Europe to the far-right government. So sometimes like life and art are so closely intertwined, which is almost describe the same system, even if we kind of like don't know it when we're making things. And with this, I will pass to Hans-Ulrich, because the archive of Hans-Ulrich Obrist was this year dedicated to the work of Gustav Metzger, and it's also included an exhibition of his work outside of all the interviews and the historical material that Hans-Ulrich has collected, an exhibition which made such an interesting way of entering the thinking of someone who was talking about all of these matters, but from very, very, very early on. And someone had an extensive experience of historical urgency.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vassilis. And I mean, it's incredible. This is just 1 year. So you can imagine there's so many parallel realities on the LUMA campus. In a way, it's a segue then also, because we're going to soon now bring in Theasta. You know, the topic of archives is very important in Theasta's work, and also during Theasta's time in Arles. Theasta connected to local archives, which is very interesting. But just very briefly, in a very quick summary, when Maja invited me to basically work with the archive in Arles, we decided to do every year an exhibition out of the archive. We began with Edouard Glissant, because that seemed relevant, because he was such an inspiring figure, the Martinican poet and philosopher, for this whole idea of the archipelago, that the whole campus of LUMA is an archipelago, and for many other projects, you know, we do. So then the second year, Etel Adnan, another very inspiring figure who realized one of her last works, a mural in the auditorium in Arles. And then, of course, it continues, and now, after Agnes Varda, another artist, obviously it has to be artists with whom I worked a lot, because we need 10, 20, 30 interviews, you know, we need the correspondence. So it's into depth kind of archive. And Gustav Metzger, we can very quickly go to these slides. Maybe we see the extinction handwriting we developed. We see how we basically talked early on about the importance for institution to bring ecology in the center, which is basically also why when we worked with him at the Serpentine, we began really to put ecology as a permanent project, because whenever we did a project with him, he was in the office the next day and he said, you need to continue. This cannot be just a project. And he really encouraged us to then also create a department, you know, have a curator of ecology at the center of the institution. It just shows in a way how important it is to follow artists, and of course that's exactly what happens at LUMA, because LUMA, the artists are always in a way at the core. And it's interesting also that we can see in the exhibition how Gustav developed actually an extinction handwriting. The exhibition is called All of Us Together, so it's really about togetherness. And here, of course, is super interesting, Gustav Metzger, for the whole topic of form and impact, because that was his whole work was about that. And he was both an artist and also, in a way, somebody who was always creating actions. Here you see the historic photographs, where he takes photographs of trauma and creates situations for visitors to literally interact with these photographs very directly, to crawl in under a piece of cloth, to walk behind. And it was kind of interesting in the context, of course, also because when the exhibition, the whole LUMA campus happens in summer with all these exhibitions, it's always also parallel to when happened the rencontre. So it's a big focus in our photography, and here visitors could see a very, very different kind of focus on photography than usually, because it was really about interaction. He also showed us newspaper, Gustav Metzger, where he wanted visitors to cut out from all the papers whenever the word extinction is mentioned. That became a kind of a participatory collage. And I think that's also important, because we could see this with Vassilis' presentation, how interdependent it all is. It's a pattern where everything starts to connect, no?
That's the point, and it's so hard to show unless people are, you capture people who are already interested, and to show touches after touches, and you call them layers, but some are only like punctual and some others are. It's a little like a impressionistic painting, actually, in the end, the holistic approach.
We can then suddenly see in Gustav Metzger, you know, his amazing works where he created basically chemical slides, you know, slides which would always change. And that's the artwork as a living organism in the 60s. And then we can go upstairs and then see the permanent room, which is at LUMA of Philippe Pareno, which is the artwork as a living organism. So there's just so many moments of interdependency.